Hi everyone. I am back after quite a long hiatus. A lot has happened in the meantime. I have changed countries, cities, houses, everything. A lot of things happened really quickly, and they put a break to what my original plans had been for finishing this book by the end of 2020. However, that is life, and this is a very good change for me, and I look forward again to not only finishing this book, but reading many, many more for all of you out there who do enjoy listening to them. Now, enough about me, because this is certainly not about me. This is all about Thornyhold, and we are going to start with chapter 17. So we've had quite an eventful chapter. Chapter 16 was quite an eventful chapter from Julie's point of view. She is in this rosy glow from having discovered that she has fallen in love, to this sudden stark break in the middle of the night and Jessamy appearing out of nowhere and under quite suspicious circumstances. So this chapter just further delves into what she's thinking about, what might have happened, and it brings back memories, or actually not, I wouldn't even say memories only, brings back very real things from her childhood. It shows the deepening relationship between her and William, and it furthers the plot, as well as kind of adding back this emblem of her lost childhood back into her life. All of the things that we have seen, we've known about Jilly, as far as being a very nurturing, caring person, and also the certain traits of Cousin Galus that we had begun to see in her as the wise woman of Thornyhold. We start seeing more and more of that in her. She is truly settling into her character. And so is William in many senses. He is, if this would have been a detective novel, he would have been the faithful sidekick. For me, he kind of reminds me of those very intelligent, adventurous children from Enid Blyton's books, the children's adventures, whether it's Famous Five or Secret Seven, or even some of the other ones that she had written. So lots of good throwbacks, and I hope all of you enjoy the chapter. And with that, let's begin.
"Do you know anyone who sets traps in the woods?" I asked William. He came soon after breakfast with another gift of eggs, and the declared intention of finishing the weeding of the herb beds. We went out together to the tool shed. "No, I didn't know anyone did. They're not legal, are they?" "Gin traps? No, thank goodness. But snares? Your father said you got gypsies here sometimes. They might try to trap rabbits." "I suppose so. There haven't been any gypsies here, though not for ages. They used to camp down in the quarry, where Dad found you with the sheep. But it's too overgrown now, and they were given a site somewhere on the other side of the forest, an old lane that's not used anymore since the road cut it off. I've seen them there, but not near us. Mr. Yellen won't let them. Why?" The shed door was ajar. I pushed it wider. "Because last night I stopped dead." William, close behind me, blundered into me and started to say sorry, but that too got bitten off. We both stood like dummies in the tool shed doorway, staring down at something in the corner. In Hodge's bed, curled tightly among the sacks and newspapers, trying to make itself even smaller, and blinking up at us with scared, ingratiating eyes, a collie dog, thin and filthy and shivering with fright. Black and white. A ghost from the past. From a dream. I don't think I even remembered Jessamy and the bitten arm. I was down on my knees beside the dog as once I had gone down on the flagstones of the vicarage kitchen, and the savage dog crouched and shivered with his rat-like tail clamped tightly into his body, only the tip free in a feeble attempt at a wag. A tongue came out trying to lick. There was a frayed rope round the neck. It had been carelessly knotted, and the knot had tightened cruelly. The end had been gnawed through. William was down beside me, stroking the dog's head. "He's dreadfully thin. He's starving." "Yes, careful. I'm sure he's all right, but if you hurt him, he could snap." All the time I spoke, I was patting, smoothing, feeling the dog's body, keeping my voice soothing and my actions gentle and slow. "William, run to the kitchen and warm some milk. Blood heat. Try it with your finger. Break a slice of bread into it, little pieces, and bring it in a basin. Don't let Hodge out, and bring the sharp kitchen knife to get this rope off. All right?" "All right, boy. All right, boy. Lie still." William ran. The dog reached up and licked my chin. I talked and handled him. He was dreadfully thin. His nose was cracked and dry, his coat tangled and filthy, but gradually the shivering lessened to brief spasms, then stopped, and he lay still. There was blood on the newspapers where he lay, and probing very cautiously, I found just at the root of the tail a bare patch, raw and still bleeding a little, where the dog had been licking at it, as if a piece of skin or a tuft of hair had been pulled out and the skin had torn with it. Jessamy's attacker, certainly, and if Jessamy had handled the wound incautiously as he set the dog free, then the nasty bite was explained. William came carefully with the basin and the kitchen knife, keeping the blade out of the dog's line of vision. I managed to slide the knife in under the rope and cut it. It fell away. William put the basin on the floor, and I gently persuaded the dog towards it. He got up and crawled forward uncertainly. The starved body still crouched and cringing, we watched in silence while he lapped. Swallowing seemed difficult, but he managed almost all the bowlful before he turned and crept back into his nest. "Shall I bring some of Hodge's food?" asked William. "No, he's been starved too long. The bread and milk's enough for now. We'll let him sleep on it." "May I pet him?" "Of course. Talk to him while I get my bike outside. Take it slowly. I don't think he thinks much of the human race as yet." We left the dog then, shutting the shed door on him. "Was that why you were asking about traps?" asked William. "Yes." "But you didn't know about the dog, did you?" "No, but in a way, yes. Listen." I told him about the night's adventures with Jessamy, and if the dog was caught by the tail and Jessamy hurt him trying to get him out, that'll be why he got bitten. The wound looks too bad for a snare, unless the dog was worrying at it himself, but whatever kind of trap it is, I'm going to find it and take it away. Can I help?" "Of course. I'm counting on it. Jessamy said it was over to the big house. How far is that?" "Not far. About half a mile." "Then let's go." Though the big house had certainly been pretty big, it was easy, even in the spectacularly tumbled ruins, to see that No trap in the normal sense of the word had been set there. Jessamy had either failed to understand me or had seized on an easy explanation to save further questioning. The front steps were still fairly well intact. They mounted in a handsomely splayed sweep to the main doorway, and in doing so bridged a sort of dry moat, a narrow courtyard where sunken half-windows had once lighted the basement rooms. Here presumably had been the offices, billiard room, gun room, cloak rooms, and at the rear of the house, the kitchens, pantries, boot room, boiler room. The cellars would be lower still. "No one would set a trap here," said William, as we gingerly clambered up the steps and peered over the balustrade into the basement area. "You wouldn't think so. If it, the dog, had got into the house itself, it might just have fallen in somewhere and got trapped that way." "With a rope around its neck? Well, no. I'll go down and see what's through the gap, shall I?" "All right, but for heaven's sake, be careful." I watched while the boy climbed carefully down into the sunken area, across the wedged and fallen blocks of masonry till he could lean in through what was left of a basement window. "Can you see?" No reply. Then without turning he beckoned. I clambered down beside him, and he moved aside for me. I peered in. The shell of a small room where cracks in the walls and ceiling let light in. A floor deep in plaster and fallen stone and splintered wood, long rotten. A wooden door jamb sprung from its bed, with a piece of frayed rope knotted round it. A chipped animal bowl, empty and dry. Dogs' droppings, many of them in the small space round the door jamb, and even above their stink the prison smell of fear and despair and the death of trust and love. We said nothing. I had to bite hard on the words I would have liked to use, and I think William was swallowing tears. We climbed out of the pit and up into the clear air and padded in silence back to our bicycles. William made no attempt to mount. He stood holding his bicycle, looking not at me, but back at the big house. "Can they claim him back?" "They? Whoever put him there? You told me Jessamy said it was gypsies." I shook my head. "Whoever left that dog to starve hasn't any sort of chance to reclaim him. They'd be lucky to avoid prosecution. No, if it was gypsies, we won't hear from them again." "Will you keep him, then?" "Oh, yes, but—" I hesitated. "Just for the time being. Would your father let you keep him, William?" "Me?" He looked pleased, but with a shade of doubt. "Yes, there are a few questions I want the answer to, and until I get them, I think we must keep the dog pretty quiet. It's a queer sort of business, you see. I mean—" He was there instantly. "You mean they would hurt him? Jessamy wasn't just letting him out?" "I don't know. I just know that it's something to do with— Oh, I can't tell you yet, William. Honestly, could you just leave it with me for now?" I could not tell him that it had to do with a nightmare of witchcraft, and the memory of something like a promise made to me beside the river Eden. But my assumptions were the same as his own, and he knew it. I added slowly, "All right, if you think about it, the dog gnawed through that rope and probably broke it itself. And once the rope broke, it could, and it did, jump out of that place and run away. So, granted even that Jessamy climbed in to rescue it, what did he do to get himself bitten like that?" There was that scream of pain I heard. If something hurt and frightened the dog so that it threw itself against the rope and it snapped and then ran away, well, there it is. That wound. Yes. Oh, Miss Cayless. He drew a breath. Well, of course I'll take him straight away. The sooner the better. Will your father mind? Not if I tell him what's happened. It can't be today, because he's had to go to London to see the publisher. He'll be late back, but it'll be all right. I know it will. He likes animals, you know. He really does. But he doesn't have time, and a dog takes a lot of time, he says. I'll have to tell him about it, won't I? Of course. And make it clear that I'll take the dog myself once everything's cleared up. We must keep him safe for now and feed him up. I'm sure there's nothing wrong that kindness and good food won't cure. But I'll get him to a vet as soon as I can. I'll go into Arnside and get food for him. But for the moment, brown bread and milk, and maybe an egg, beaten up or even scrambled. You can manage that? Oh, yes. Then let's get back, shall we? You're the expert on keys, William. Does the tool shed lock? Yes. Then let's get back and lock it before I have any more callers. Back at Thornyhold, we checked on the dog, which was fast asleep, locked the tool shed door, and took ourselves to the kitchen, where I made coffee for myself and gave William a mug of sweet cocoa and a slab of the cake I had cut last night for Jessamy. He'd asked no more questions, seemingly content to leave the past to itself, and to dwell on the exciting prospect of looking after the dog and bringing it back to health. I hardly listened, was still half in, half out of that strange moonlight world of dreams and memories where other mysteries remained to be solved. Who hereabout keeps pigeons? I asked. Pigeons? William interrupted, in mid-flight about sheepdog trials and the dazzling merits of collie dogs, repeated in the tone of voice he might have used for pterodactyls. His expression brought me back to earth and made me laugh. Yes, pigeons, birds with feathers. They say coo and live in lofts, or in attics like mine. You told me you used to help Miss Cayless look after hers. Sorry, said William, grinning. What about pigeons, Miss Cayless? Don't you think you should just make it jelly? Less muddling, perhaps? And drop the miss? I'm not sure. Try it. Go on. Jelly. Jelly? Again. Jelly? That's fine. Now, what I asked you was, who around here keeps pigeons? He knitted his brows. Let me think. Well, for a start, there used to be pigeons nesting at the farm, not our house. The one where the farmer lives, blackcocks, but I think they were wild ones, you know, rock doves. Dad says all the tame sorts were bred from them, so they take easily to nesting in boxes and things, because in the wild they go into caves and holes. Not wild pigeons, homers, carriers. Oh, yes, well, there must be a few in town. There's a big field just outside by the river bridge, and it's divided into allotments, you know. Little gardens. Lots of the people who have those keep pigeon lofts. Why? Were you wanting to start keeping them again yourself? It seems I might have to. I've got 2 now. A second one came soon after I got here with a message. A message? His mug went down on the table with a rattle and some cocoa spilt over the rim. Came here? What did it say? I'll show you. I tucked it away in the inner pocket of my handbag. I fished the slip of flimsy out. Here. I suppose it was a stupid thing to do. The truth was that in my need for a confidant, I'd forgotten how much of a child William still was. In so many ways he had the sense and humor and tough outlook of a boy twice his age, and I had just made him free of my name, as I might do a contemporary. So I handed him the message. He got up to take it, and as he read it, I saw the healthy colour leave his face, his lips parted, quite bloodless. I said with quick contrition, "Oh, William, I'm sorry. I should never have let you see it. Here, sit down. It's all right. Whoever sent it, it couldn't have been nicer or more welcome. It came just when it was needed. The pigeon must be... She can't have sent it. She can't be still alive. I was at the funeral. I went with Dad. She was buried. I saw it. William, don't. You make me feel terrible. I'd never have showed you this thing if I hadn't wanted a friend's advice. It was... Dad didn't want me to go. But I liked her, and I wanted to be there. I didn't go when Mummy died because he said I wasn't old enough, but that was years ago, so he did let me go this time, and I saw it all. William. He was not listening. He was as deep in his own shocked thoughts as I was. Do you mean she was a witch? A real one? I know people said so, and she used to laugh. She said she sometimes saw the future a bit. She would tease me about that, what was going to happen to me, but it was always funny. Just fun, wasn't it? Yes, of course it was. Was she really a witch? I don't know. I don't know if there are such people. I do know she had some sort of magic about her, and there are lots of people who can see a bit into the future. But whatever my cousin Galis was, she was a good woman, William, and you were right to be fond of her. I only met her a few times, but I loved her. So stop worrying yourself about magic and spells. I don't know whether such things exist or not, but if they do, then trust in God and they can't hurt you, okay? Okay. I'm all right, really. But you... What's the matter, Miss Jilly? Jilly, are you all right? You look kind of funny. Do I? It's nothing at all, only I thought I must have got it wrong, but you told me your mother had run away and left you, that's all. I was surprised when you said she had died, and sorry, of course, I'm sorry. So am I. About telling a lie, I mean. He looked down into his empty mug. I sort of made things up about it when it happened. It made it better in a way, but I shouldn't have told a real lie about it. It's all right. I understand. It doesn't matter. It might have made it awkward with Dad. Well, yes, it might, but it didn't. There must have been something unconvincing in my tone. He glanced at me doubtfully, then left it alone. Or if you talked about it to someone else who knew? Agnes, who assuredly knew and who had failed to enlighten me. Why? That could wait too, I said briskly. Forget it, William. Now about this message. We'll forget magic too, and work out how this could have happened, shall we? So let's get back to pigeons. He pushed up his mug aside. Yes, birds. With feathers? Let's say coo. What about them? He was recovering fast. I poured more coffee for myself and sat down again. I don't know much about them. For instance, how fast do they fly? They can do about 60, but of course it depends on the wind and weather. 60 miles an hour? Good heavens! Do you know if my cousin's birds were carriers? I don't know. They were all homers, of course. You might say all pigeons are. But you never saw her send a message? No, but that's not to say she didn't. There was a lot she did that I never was allowed to know. Have you any idea what happened to her pigeons? Where they went? Someone came and took them away, that's all. Mrs. Trapp told me they'd gone, so I needn't come to feed them any more. Well, the only explanation can be that my cousin left the message ready with instructions for the bird to be released when I got to Thornyhold. Well, but that would mean she knew you'd be coming. Knew she was dying, I mean. She must have written the message before she was taken away, before they took the pigeons. She did know, I said gently. That was one bit of the future she was sure about. Long before she was even taken ill, she wrote me a letter and gave it to her lawyers to post on a certain date, and it said, "When you get this, Thornyhold will be yours." I think that knowing the future might be disturbing, but it can be good as well. Knowing and not being frightened. Having the time to make all one's arrangements, and knowing that there are good hands waiting for the things and people one cares about. Don't you think so? He was silent, but the strain had gone from his face, and he nodded. I set my cup down and got to my feet. Well, this has been a pretty disturbing morning for both of us, all things considered. Let's forget it all now, shall we? And just get on with the job in hand. Can I have a peep at him before I go? There was no doubt in William's mind as to the job in hand. Just a peep. Don't wake him up. What are you going to call him? I once knew a collie called Rover. What do you think about that? He wrinkled his nose. A bit ordinary. What about Rags? I think you're right. Never go back. Rags it is. Off you go then. And, William, thank you for everything. Let me know about what your father says. I saw him to the back door. On his way down the path, he turned. Oh, I totally forgot. Dad said specially I was to ask if your hands were all right. They're fine. Please thank him. Okay, I'll be seeing you. I watched him peer in through the tool shed window, then nod back at me, miming sleep. He waved and went. I stared after him till he vanished into the woods, then my gaze lifted. Above the treetops, the high clouds seemed to form themselves into a huge question mark. End of chapter 17.